Okay, so starting off, as I said, with the definition for what is intelligent content. And this is a definition that we've honed over the years as we've talked about it and others have talked about it. But essentially, intelligent content is content that is designed to be modular, structured, reusable, format-free, and semantically rich. So what does that actually mean? And what is the impact on intelligent content? Well, the first thing that we're talking about is modularity. So instead of creating web pages or creating entire documents, say a story or something of that nature, what you're doing is you're moving towards creating chunks of information, modules of information. And the reason that we're doing that is so that we can mix and match our content and build it in different ways for different purposes, different customers, different channels. And we love to use the illustration of the Lego blocks because that's essentially what you're doing with your content is you're creating reusable blocks of information. Lego is designed that everything can fit together, and that's what you need to do with your content, so it's very consistent. But one of the challenges that we've seen as we've worked with organizations over the years is that working in modules, instead of in pages or documents or sort of whole things, it's a paradigm shift. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of working. It's a different way of constructing your information. And that's going to impact your workflow, and it's going to impact your change management. And Charles will talk more about that. I just have another couple of Lego examples here. We use, as I said, the concept of Legos when we're describing this. And it can be something as very similar. You know, you're kind of building a tower. And people are doing really amazing things with Lego these days. And, sorry, pointing at the screen instead of up here. So, you know, we've got something much more complex. And there are people that spend tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours putting it together. So this works whether your content is very simple or very complex. But of course, what it needs in order to make it work effectively is an intelligent content strategy. So the next building block or characteristic of intelligent content is structured content. Now, when we talk about structured content, and part of the definition, it's designed to be human and machine readable. So if we're putting together something like a story, and the story, when you think about it, you know, you start off, you've got a title, you've probably got some sort of an introduction to it, you may have some pull quotes, those sorts of things in the information. But most of the times when people are reading that kind of content or writing that kind of content, what they're doing is they just got sort of a blank field and they just start typing stuff in and put in lists and this and that and the other thing. What we want to be able to do is to identify the structure. So if my opening paragraph is an introduction, it should be labeled and tagged as an introduction. If it's a teaser, it should be labeled and tagged as a teaser. And then the beauty of this machine-readable content, if I've tagged some content and I know that that's a teaser, then I can take that content, and if I've got good structured writing guidelines, then we can automatically push that out in a tweet. It could go out to Facebook. We don't have to human say, push it here, push it there, push it somewhere else. We can say, we're publishing this new information, and as an extract, take this, put it up on Facebook, send it out in Twitter, link it to the overall article on your desktop, web, or in your mobile system. So it's there to help the authors to write. That's the human part. How do I write a teaser? Well, these are the best practices guidelines for writing a teaser, and keep it this many characters, then we can do a lot with it. Now, one of the things, obviously, in terms of marketing materials is that it's inherently creative. It's a very creative activity in thinking, how you're going to put information together, how you're going to communicate best with your customers or your prospective customers, and it tends to be also fairly visual. But when we work with structure, some people kind of push back and go, oh, but that restricts what I'm trying to do. That doesn't let me be as creative as I would like to be. So that again is one of those paradigm shifts. And what we've actually found with organization, if you can build a best practice structure for your content, for whatever it happens to be that you're publishing, it can be as simple as I said, like a story, it could be complicated like a white paper, those sorts of things, that once you have that structure and people are comfortable and know how to write to it, it actually adds to the creativity because you can focus on what's important, which is the content and the message, and not the fiddly stuff in trying to decide how you're going to put it together. But it can be challenging for some people. The next major thing that we focus on is reuse. So when we talk about reuse, we're reusing existing content components to develop new. I want to take that piece, and I want to take that piece, and I want to take that piece, and I want to assemble it together and make something new and interesting with it. And I want to assemble it just one way, many different ways. I want to reuse it in multiple places so that everywhere that that piece of content appears, it's consistent, it's accurate, saying the same thing. And when we look at the impact of reuse with our information, as I said in the first one, when we're dealing with modules, we are starting to review our content on a modular basis and not just in the document. So we need to ensure that our workflow allows us to manage those reusable objects to help in the review cycle when people are seeing content and you say, hey, you've already seen this, you've already reviewed it, you've already signed it off, you don't need to look at it again. You can be assured that everywhere that that content appears is going to be the same. And then we have format free, and this may be the biggest challenge that we find. What we need to do is design our content so that there's no embedded formatting, so that we're not saying that this looks a certain way, that this heading is a certain title or color or font, that this paragraph is a certain title or content or font or whatever it happens to be. What we want to do is separate the look and the feel from the content itself. That doesn't mean you look at really ugly stuff on your systems as you're building the content. You will have a style sheet that allows you to sort of see what you've got, but you're not focused on specifically creating that content for mobile and just tuning it exactly right so it fits, or desktop web, or to go out in a Tumblr post or something of that nature. You have best practices guidelines. You know how long things should be or shouldn't be, and you learn to write that way. We do often use technology to help us preview how it's going to look, but you work format free. You are not focused on creating that content for any particular channel or any particular deliverable. So it too is a paradigm shift. And the final one, semantically rich. We've got all this content. We've got all these chunks of content, these modules of content that are in our system. And we want to do multiple things with that content. To begin with, what we want to be able to do, as we as authors, content contributors, want to be able to find that content and retrieve that content. You can't do that unless you add some intelligence to the content like metadata, so that you have tags on it that says this is a certain piece of content for a certain product or service or region or role or whatever it happens to be. But we also have semantic structure. So remember that teaser? That's just like metadata. It tells you that that content is a teaser. Find me all teasers which apply to product A. So it makes it very, very easy for you to retrieve. And it makes it so much easier for us then to deliver, because we want to be able to deliver that content in the way that our customers and prospects want to see that. And it's important to understand that metadata for storage and retrieval is not necessarily the same as SEO. SEO is very customer-facing. Metadata is typically internal-facing for how we manage it in the system, and also how we may push it out through things like dynamic delivery engines for personalization and things like that. So we need to work on both of them, but metadata is something that you may not have thought of and aren't doing a lot. So it's really, really critical that we create good metadata and we tag our content appropriately. But sometimes in the beginning, because people aren't used to using it, they're not used to classifying information and organizing information, that they may find it a little bit frustrating. So those are the kinds of things that have to be dealt with as we're working through our workflow and our change management.